What drives Aemond Targaryen? Is it power, jealousy, or something more subtle? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. I cover George R. R. Martin's World of Ice and Fire in full on this channel, as well as The Lord of the Rings and The Witcher. Welcome. This is your obvious spoiler warning for House of the Dragon. I'm mostly talking about book stuff here, but you have been warned. In George R. R. Martin's world, second sons are quite a theme. In this patriarchal, quasi-feudal society, the noble firstborn son inherits the title, lands, and money of his father, and the second son doesn't. They might hope for an advantageous marriage, be granted some lands of their own, or perhaps make a name for themselves as attorney knight, say, but they get nothing by right. The flip side is that they also don't get all the pressures of being firstborn. They aren't trained from an early age to rule and have responsibility. Some embrace this and enjoy the freedoms it brings. Others perhaps feel a little jealous, believing themselves better suited to rule than their elder brother. Still more find themselves overcompensating, trying to prove their worth. Some perhaps are a mixture of all three. It's a theme many have noted in real-world monarchies past and present, but George R. R. Martin takes it to an extreme. There is even a sellsword company called the Second Sons, founded by disillusioned second sons seeking their fortune. And all this seems particularly relevant in Targaryen history. A Targaryen second son is so often more driven and charismatic than their elder brother. Maegor outshines Aenys Targaryen. In the Dance of the Dragons and before, Daemon undoubtedly takes the limelight from Viserys. Viserys II is always the power behind the throne for his brother Aegon III, and whereas Aegon II had his own cruel fascination, there's no doubt that his younger brother Aemond is the driving force for Team Green for most of the war. This seems to have been the case for Aemond since childhood, where he was said to have been born half the size of Aegon, but twice as fierce. And whereas Aegon claimed the beautiful, regal Sunfire as his bondage dragon, Aemond claimed the oldest, largest, and fiercest dragon then alive, Vhagar. He was just 10 years old. And Aemond seemed to lean into his new image. He lost an eye during the whole claiming Vhagar incident, which he attempted not just without his parents' knowledge, but very much against their will. They wanted him to go on to Dragonstone and find an egg or a hatchling, and he thereafter either wore an eye patch or a sapphire in his lost eye socket. He added to his look night black armour with gold highlights, a strong look, pun intended. His disdain for authority, fierceness in combat, and confrontational approach to life, we hear of several incidences of him goading the strong boys, led to inevitable comparisons to Daemon. Even for Targaryen names, theirs are very similar, just move the D from the front of the word to the end. And the echoes across to Daemon are deliberate and clear by George R. R. Martin. A second son to the king, naming themselves Protector of the Realm, basing themselves at Harrenhal for much of the war, flying solo but at the last forming a strong attachment to a mysterious woman, and even dying together. I could go on. It has to be said, though, that as fierce as Aemond was, he always seemed to be overcompensating, never quite matching up to the legendary figure of his uncle. Daemon outwitted Aemond by quitting Harrenhal to take King's Landing, sending Aemond into a fury. We're also told that Daemon, in the book, was immune to Alice River's powers, whereas Aemond apparently became besotted with her. And when they finally faced each other in combat, Daemon outmaneuvered Aemond, killing him before they hit the God's Eye Lake. Daemon appears to have decided to end his own life and Aemond's, and succeeded, whereas Aemond wanted to kill Daemon and survive, but failed. That final battle on Dragonback is actually probably more consequential than we often give it credit for. We note how it brought their two arcs to a close, but it probably also decided the fate of the Seven Kingdoms. Given what happened at the Dragon Pit and Tumbleton, it's no exaggeration to say that if there had been a clear winner between Aemond and Daemon, the winner would have been in pole position to rule alone without much by way of opposition. Which, if you want to look at it from another angle, makes it that Aemond was defeated by the thing he wished he was, though whether he further wished to become king is left a little vague in the book. We're told very clearly that after Aegon was incapacitated, one-eyed Aemond the Kinslayer took up the iron and ruby crown of Aegon the Conqueror. "It looks better on me than it ever did on him," the prince proclaimed. Yet Aemond did not assume the style of king, but named himself only Protector of the Realm and Prince Regent. So although he took the symbols and power of the king, he didn't take the title. Was it a lack of ambition that stayed his hand, or love for his brother? We're not told. He certainly had the opportunity. Which hints at there being more to him than the image of the cartoon, power-hungry villain he can sometimes appear at first glance. A bully on the most powerful dragon, prone to bouts of anger, and so on. He even has an eye patch to add to the piratical look. Thankfully, the TV show adds quite a few layers to this. In the book, he is quite a terror as a boy, but on the show, he himself was bullied by his brother and neglected by his parents, even though he seems to have done all the things a good Targaryen son should have done: study the histories, become a strong fighter, claim a dragon, even learn High Valyrian better than his older brother. Alicent refers to all this rather obliquely as the indignities of his youth. To protect himself, he seems to have built up a shell of indifference around himself, so no one can harm him. But if you look hard enough, you can see the cracks. He visits that pillow house down in the city to a woman who is noticeably older than him and unburdens himself to her. The actor Ewan Mitchell describes Aemond's relationship to his mother, Alicent, as his kryptonite. It's fair to say there are unresolved issues there. And the act he is best remembered for, killing his half-brother Lucerys in the battle over Shipbreaker Bay, is shown on the show not to be an act of cold-blooded murder, but unintended by him. It was Vhagar who attacked Arrax, and Aemond tried to call her off. He wasn't blameless. He was taunting Luke and pushing Vhagar towards attack mode, but he didn't pull the trigger himself. But in both book and show, Aemond's decisions become more questionable the further into the war you go. At least, we'll see where he goes from here in the show. But choosing to leave King's Landing defenceless while he heads off on Vhagar and with Criston Cole's army was perhaps not the wisest choice. Unless, of course, he was running away because he realised that defending the city was impossible. Though, even then, leaving his brother and mother would be quite heartless. Ordering the deaths of all of House Strong at Harrenhal, save Alice and Larys, who was in King's Landing, shows his anger when things don't go his way, burning the Riverlands, his cruelty, and so on. So if we just take all that into account, Aemond is quite a dark character, a wild and willful child, hot-tempered and unforgiving, who turned into a cruel, hot-tempered and unforgiving adult. Even if we allow him the character mitigations they do in the show, childhood indignities, a more confessional side behind the facade, and him not actually wanting to kill Lucerys, he still comes across as a remarkably unsympathetic character. Which does make me wonder whether there is one more twist to this character at the end, through Alice Rivers. He becomes remarkably attached to her, remarkably quickly, flying back to rescue her from Harrenhal, having a baby with her, allegedly even marrying her. The hint in Fire and Blood is that she entranced him with her sorceress talents, but that probably says more about the Maester's prejudices than what actually happened. What if he actually fell in love? Or, given what happened to Daemon in Harrenhal and the mirroring between the two characters, what if she took him on a magical voyage of introspection? What if he changed? We'll never know in the book, but in show canon, I suspect it's not as straightforward as him just being entranced and then being angry at Daemon and the world until his demise. Aemond Targaryen left an unclear legacy. He was known as Kinslayer, but on the show at least, that doesn't seem to be intentional on his part. He comes across as power-hungry, but stops short of declaring himself king when he might have. And then we have his son. Because after his death, and after the end of the Dance of the Dragons, Alice Rivers appears at Harrenhal with a child she says is their true-born son, the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. Fire and Blood Part 1 ends before we find out what happens there, but could it be true? Could Aemond's greatest legacy actually be the child of a Targaryen prince and what we now suspect to be a powerful Greenseer? What happens to that child? It sounds like a proto-Bloodraven, part Targaryen and part Greenseer. Plot important beyond the simple fact that it has a claim to the Iron Throne, but that's probably another more tinfoily video. But what do you make of Aemond? Was he just a bad guy, or might he perhaps have had a softer side hidden in there somewhere? Let me know in the comment section. If you'd like to see more videos like this, digging into George R. R. Martin's world of Ice and Fire in depth, there's a link to my playlist appearing now on the left of your screen. Or if you'd like to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon on the right of your screen. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.